My name is Trip Gorman, and in this episode of Semilla.VC, I sat down with Greg Mitchell, managing partner at AVP Ventures, based in Lima, Peru. Greg got his MBA at Wharton while also getting a degree in Latin American and Spanish language studies from the University of Pennsylvania. He's worked in private equity at the International Finance Corporation, as well as for the Peace Corps, and he's now on the board of a number of breakout Latin American tech startups through his role as managing director at AVP Ventures. In this episode, we discussed what Greg would tell American VCs who are thinking about taking on board positions at Latin American companies, why Greg believes Peru is fertile ground for venture capital and a home to the future of Latin American unicorns, how Chinese direct investment is playing a role in the future of Latin American tech and venture capital, and what he would tell an American who's seeking to move to Latin America and live there just like he did. We discussed all this and more in this episode of Semilla.VC. Okay, Greg, could you start by telling the audience a bit more about your work history up to and including your current role at AVP Ventures?
Yeah, I grew up in the Northeast of the US. I think early on I had an interest in finance, but also Spanish language. I think it intrigued me that Latin America was close by, and I just really enjoyed the process of learning Spanish. That led me after college to serve in the Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic. I really grew and enjoyed that experience. And after that, I wanted to find a way to keep living and working in Latin America. So I decided to get a master's degree, an MBA, along with a master's in international studies with the focus on Latin America and Spanish language, because that was kind of my springboard to coming back to Latin America. I think my goal at that point, and still is, to help motivate and inspire capital to invest in the region and the people in Latin America. And I think I try to find different ways to do that. So kind of thinking about how my career path, I can kind of put the pieces together, but along the way I'm always trying to find ways, learn and be a better investor or facilitator of capital and ideas between Latin America and other parts of the world. I was able to work in finance a little bit to gain a strong finance background. I worked in private equity in New York for a while, and then at Wharton I was able to travel a lot to Latin America. So that made me to other countries besides where I had lived before in the Dominican Republic. That gave me a much better idea of the differences between the countries and a much broader perspective of Latin America. And then I worked at the IFC in Washington, D.C., which I really, really enjoyed. And, as a institution that provides capital opportunities all over emerging markets, that was kind of another good training spot for me in terms of matching investing with emerging markets, which was new for me. And then when I came to Peru, this was a time probably in 2011 where the growing middle class and increasingly urban middle class in Latin America and Peru was being manifested and had already multiple years of this growth. So there's a lot of opportunities in growth capital of brick and mortar businesses, retail and education. So I work for an investment fund in Peru, Nexus Group, that invests in those type of companies. And then while living in Peru and working in investment, I was able to meet with entrepreneurs, organizations, including Endeavor Peru, which were starting to just get off the ground 5 or 6 years ago. And the closer I got to entrepreneurs, the more that I wanted to work with them and find ways to motivate capital, invest earlier on in businesses' life cycle, especially technology businesses, which offer disruption opportunities and solutions for Latin Americans and have a role in that. So that's what I've been doing the last 5 years at AVP Ventures. I think we're still in the early stages still of the startup community in Peru. That's what I'm looking forward to talking with you about. Trip.
I'm looking forward as well. Could you first by telling us a little bit more about what AVP Ventures does differently?
Yeah, that would be great. We try to be a partner to startups as they help them raise momentum and raise a great seed round. So what we do differently is meeting startups early, and at the same time as we meet them, we help introduce them to other people in our network, but not directly related to our fund. So we want to help them build around over time. This means our deal flow process is pretty transparent to our investor base and also to our co-investors. So we just try to get as many people on board as early as possible, and that way we can be a good partner. It's very hard to raise capital in Latin America, and I think the more we can help founders get in front of as more people as possible, the more we can help them. So we try to facilitate that process.
From both a living and investment perspective, what makes Peru unique among Latin American nations?
Well, it's a very unique place because it has a long coast, it has the highlands, and it has the rainforest. So it's a special place to live, and the history to enjoy all in the same country close by. So that's special. I live right near the water, so that's something I enjoy about it as well. I mean, I think Lima or Peru, and Lima is a big city, so it's one of the top within the top five, maybe top five, top 10 cities in Latin America. So I enjoy living in a big city. A lot of the economy of Peru is Lima. So even though Peru is not one of the bigger countries in Latin America, it has a very substantial city and where I live, and I think this also provides a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs as a great starting point.
You were on the board of a number of breakout Latin American and especially Peruvian tech companies. What would you tell an American venture capitalist about being on the board of a Latin American company?
Okay, well, I think I would have a lot to learn from them as well. I think what we try to do is just open up doors. Many times they're great entrepreneurs with great ideas, especially they come from specific sectors where they have the sector know-how of the industry they're working in. But maybe this is kind of their first time managing through a process of building a company from scratch, raising money. So maybe it's first time entrepreneurs that have a lot to offer in terms of solutions they're building, but there's a great opportunity to work with them and help them manage the process of raising money and scaling out a business. I think another thing I would say, just generally, I think I found our startup community in Peru and Latin America in general very open. We quickly are able to connect with each other across countries, and I think it's a type of community where a startup coming off the ground can be easily embraced. So as in terms of being a director of a company, we have a role in being that and connecting startups to other founders as well. I think being on a board of a Latin American startups, there's not too many people, I'm included, that have relevant startup experience because we're kind of in the first few cycles of growth. So that kind of means we have to kind of get out of the way and introduce founders to other startup founders and be more a facilitator than like offer these like key strategic insights from day one. You just a little bit get out of the way and facilitate, then get out of the way, and good things would happen. That's kind of what I trust.
You tweeted, whatever your views on Peru, the next 5 years are going to demonstrate the latent potential of entrepreneurs in this country in a way that benefits the wide majority of the population. Could you elaborate on this tweet?
Yeah, there's a lot of issues that we need to deal with in Peru, and I think the startup founders here are in a great position to do that because Peru is not one of the larger markets. It's not necessarily like yet on the radar of big tech companies who are entering Brazil and Mexico. Kind of there's their primary markets. Peru's a little bit farther down the line, so it's a great opportunity. But they're great. There's great talent in Peru, so it means it's a great opportunity for the talented professionals in Peru. Maybe create solutions before competitors may arrive, and since they know the market well, they'll be able to adapt that to their needs. The Peruvian economy is very concentrated, or at least the formal part of the economy has large business and business groups, and there's a large informal part of the economy. A lot of very hard work Peruvians that are kind of outside of the formal economy. So it's like a really ripe for disruption. And I have found that there's increasingly more talented people here that can offer those solutions. The reason why is because there's more and more career paths opening up in technology. Many Peruvians are working at global tech companies in Latin America, being based in Peru remotely, or they work in another country, then come back to Peru. So I just think there's a lot more know-how, and this is with young people that are learning and building their careers. I think older generations that have worked, in traditional business without technology, it's a little bit, I mean, they're not going to be the ones that are offering the solutions. It's going to be the entrepreneurs that will be offering the solutions for Peru and other countries.
What has been your most successful investment and why?
Oh, I think for a successful investment, it has to mean that we invested and sold the company for a return. I think that's a big challenge for us in Latin America, since it's kind of a less developed, deep is not a deep, venture capital industry. So we have successfully invested and sold a company that was in Kulki, a payments company in Peru. And one of the reasons why it was our most successful investment is because we were able to lead the seed round, even though the ticket wasn't the largest ticket in the round. We were able to set the terms of the round. These are terms that initially the founders, were below their expectations in terms of valuation, but we felt it was a good price point that we were willing to invest, and also was a price point where we could attract co-investors. So Amparo, Narvarte, and Nicolás Ipasi, the founders of Kulki, were able, with our term sheet, to raise an important seed round, growing. While they grew the business after we invested, we supported them in the growth and also the corporate governance of the company. And then a little bit over a year later, BCP, the largest bank in Peru, made Kulki an offer to acquire them and buy them. And so we were able to sell our and the other investors in our rounds sell our positions for a profit. I think it was also a good investment for us because it validated our investment thesis. This is one of the first exits in Peru. So the fact that we can invest in a company, that company can grow and have a local path to exit from a corporate in Peru, validates that they're and that being the largest bank in Peru means they're doing something right that the large corporates aren't necessarily doing. And so I think it was a successful investment and also validated our investment thesis as well.
What would you tell your past self about getting into Latin American venture capital, knowing what you know now?
Okay, great. Everything goes through the entrepreneurs. So they're the center of startup communities. They're the center of venture capital. Venture capital happens because of them. I mean, it's not necessary. So working with entrepreneurs, meeting entrepreneurs, it will help you build deal flow, learn, and also if you keep talking to the best entrepreneurs, those are the best investment opportunities. So rather than think about like it's getting into the VC or getting a job, it's more like, how do I get around the most impressive entrepreneurs? How do I help those people? What are their problems? How can I support them? And once you do that, because if you build up a community of relationships with entrepreneurs, then that's when you become valuable to, or that's when you become a venture capitalist, and you might be valuable to other funds. I think we're not yet really in a stage in Latin America where it's the career path is just applying for a job and working for a venture capital firm. It's more like each of us is kind of work out our own firms and working out our own investment thesis. That turns into something. Yeah, I guess, and so and my path was, I learned finance and it was complemented by finance, but the work I'm doing right now also, incorporated skills that I gained in other experiences that weren't finance. So it's not. I think the variety of experience I've had has been important, and being close to founders has also been important. I think also there's a lot you can do just on your own. You don't have to work. You don't have to have like a title or work at a company to say you work in venture capital. You're a venture capitalist. You can join communities and start doing the work as if you are one, and that will turn into something.
Another similar question, but slightly different. What would you tell an American that's seeking to move to Latin America and live full time, like yourself?
Okay, I would say to to do it. You just have to get on a plane and move here. And I think that's an important step because being on the ground and meeting people is important to build up relationships and credibility. Each country in Latin America is different. So I ended up in Peru. I'm very happy here, but I think you can kind of pick a country and focus on a country and have that be like a base for operating and learning and growing. I think I've enjoyed living in a big city. That's kind of opens up the diversity of opportunities and people. Yeah, I guess once again, just going back to trying to meet entrepreneurs. I think entrepreneurs are kind of the center point. So if you meet them, they can introduce you to their investors. They can tell you about their challenges. They can tell you where the tech talent is. So yeah, I would just say to encourage you to just move here and speak with entrepreneurs.
Could you tell the audience about an investment you made into a company in Latin America that solves a problem that you didn't even know existed before moving to the region?
Well, we invested in a company called Mtor. They do the background checks for the gig economy. So they do background checks for ride-sharing companies, with some examples of which are Didi, Uber, for private transportation. So that's kind of, I would say, like a back office technology that you don't actually think about. But really, safety and trust is a really big value proposition, especially for that type of company when the users are interacting in the same car with people that they don't know. So there's companies like Mtor that it's very important or they have an important perspective being local to get to the right data sources in Latin America in each country, so they can do the adequate background checks. So this is something that we kind of benefit from without even really thinking about what's going on behind. But Mtor is doing a great job of doing that, and their technology and their work really benefits like thousands and millions of people that are moving around Latin America each day.
You mentioned Didi, so I need to ask a follow-up question. How has Chinese foreign direct investment and non-American, non-Western foreign direct investment affected Latin American technology?
Okay, I'm starting to see it more, and I think it's happening. I don't have like I'm not close enough to have it like concrete examples for you. But what I guess I would say, Trip, is that like I definitely feel an evenness of where capital is coming from. It's not one country or one. It's not the U.S. only. It's Europe, U.S., China, Asia. Like those are all sources of support and capital. So right now, the presence of Chinese investors is mostly in infrastructure, where I'm in Peru, but I'm very aware that for technology investing and tech growth in Latin America, it will come from many sources, including Chinese companies.
So, Greg, finally, I have to ask Peter Thiel's famous contrarian question, but with a uniquely Semilla.VC twist. What important truth about Peru or Latin America do very few people agree with you on?
I think what we're doing is still very early. I think people would agree with me on this, but I guess what I would say is that when I try to think about how to do venture capital in Latin America, I do read, I do read and learn from people doing venture capital in the U.S., but I also read about when venture capital started in the U.S. in the middle of the 20th century. So like how venture capital started in the U.S. So I think that's kind of more comparable for me than maybe what's happening in the U.S. VC right now. And kind of that perspective helps me an investor. I don't think that I work necessarily. I don't think I work in finance because we're not in a deep enough industry to just think I work in finance. We more work like it's more like a social movement of getting things off the ground and getting the ball rolling. So my role is not it's not possible to just be a venture capital. You also have to push public policy in the right direction. You also have to more broad-based building a case for venture capital in Latin America beyond just the VC pitch. So I would say, it's not necessarily, there's not necessarily a pure VC in Latin America. I think there's a lot we can learn from early venture capital in the US and apply to here. And there's just a lot of work beyond each of our funds that we have to do to get the entrepreneur story out in front and show capital the opportunities that exist. So that's kind of going back to what I mentioned in the beginning, Trip, like my mission of being like a conduit for capital between more developed markets in Latin America. I mean, that's closer to what I see my role is and what venture capital's role is, because there's just so much more opportunity than just making like one great investment. Like we can work hard to make the numbers and then the amounts of investment dollars being much larger, and that's what's gonna impact, support founders and impact the whole region.
What an excellent answer. Greg, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Semilla VC podcast.
Thanks very much, Trip.
Thank you for watching this episode of Semilla VC. My name is Trip Gorman. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you view your podcasts. Also check out our newsletter at dealflow.la.